Today we're going to talk about APA Citation, academic integrity, and Zbib. So first, here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the Wake Forest Honor System very briefly and how academic integrity and the role of citations play into that larger system. We're going to talk a little bit about the APA style, why we use APA, and how we use APA, and some really good resources to help students cite sources in the APA style. Finally, we're going to wrap up by talking about Zbib as a citation management tool and how to use it to create both your parenthetical citations in the body of a paper and your bibliography or reference list at the end of a paper. And finally, we're going to give you some advice on how you can reach out to the ZSR library with your citation questions. So let's get started. First, here is a selection from the honor system at WFU. I'm not going to read this to you except to say that it points out that all faculty, staff, and students are expected to not deceive any member of the community, not steal from one another, not cheat on academic work, not plagiarize academic work. And using citation styles like APA are going to help us avoid plagiarism. Links to the full honor system at WFU, the slide deck for this presentation today, and links to many other useful tools that we're going to talk about today are all going to be linked in the description field of the YouTube video. So a little bit about citation and how it plays a crucial role in the research process. A key component of the scholarly communication that allows researchers to identify relevant sources and communicate with each other is citation. Citing makes your work more credible. It shows that you are basing your work on the work that came before. It tells your reader where you found your information so that your reader can seek out that information and potentially read it themselves. It allows your reader to learn more about the topic, and it gives credit where credit is due. Finally, as we mentioned just a moment ago, citing protects you from plagiarizing. So through citation, we give credit to other researchers for their ideas, and we highlight our own original contributions in the field. And this presentation is going to focus on citing your sources using APA style. So why APA? Well, APA is the American Psychological Association style. It's been around since the 1940s. APA itself has been around since the 1920s. And although this style is based in psychology, it's been adopted by many other social sciences, although not all of them. And it's a consistent style that facilitates knowledge sharing. It's not just about citing sources, it's also about addressing the layout of the document, the type of language we use in the document, how we present data, and many other things around scholarly communication. So we're going to start with citation formats for scholarly articles, and also talk about citations in general and how the APA style prioritizes the author and year. So the 3 R's of APA are readability. We don't use footnotes like you might have seen in a style like Chicago at the bottom of the page. Rather, we use a parenthetical citation in the body of the text. We use clear and consistent language. You're not going to find flowery language in an APA-styled journal article. We want to reduce distraction from the main ideas and focus on the content. We also want to focus on replicability. We want to explain our methods thoroughly so that someone else can recreate those methods. And finally, we also focus on retrievability. In-text citations provide a reference list at the end that forms an intellectual backdrop for our research and allows a reader or another scholar in the field to find and consult those sources that we referenced in our paper. So let's talk about a few resources that can help you get APA help. There's the ZSR APA guide. I've given you the full URL below. We'll also link to it in the description of this video in YouTube. There's also a link to the APA's own website at apa.org. We also have print copies if you find yourself on campus of the APA style manual. And lastly, Zbib is a wonderful website, zbib.org, that's part of the Zotero family of citation management tools that can make it really easy to cite your sources. There are other ways to cite sources, but Zbib is just a useful tool that's been thoroughly vetted by the university and the library, and it's a reputable source. But there are plenty of other tools out there for citing sources that you may find useful because you may be more familiar with them. But if you're looking for a good tool to cite sources, Zbib is a great place to start. And if Zbib can't do everything you need to do, then it has a older sibling called Zotero that is a more powerful research citation management tool. So let's talk about a couple of examples of citing with APA. Let's look at a scholarly journal article and some gray literature and how we would cite those in the APA citation style. So first, the basic format for scholarly journal articles is who, when, what, and where. Who refers to the author, when refers to the year of publication, what refers to the article title, and where refers to the journal in which it was published, including the volume, issue, page numbers, and DOI. We'll talk more about DOI in a moment. So here's an example of a single author bibliography entry in the APA citation style. We've got the author's last name, a comma, and their first initial followed by a period. APA only uses first initial. That is an effort to avoid gender bias in citations. We've got the year, then we've got the title, and we've got the journal that it comes from placed in italics. We've got the volume and the issue, the page range, and the DOI. So that's a single author example. Here's a two-author example that shows you we would do author last name, first initial, period, comma, ampersand, and then the second author last name, comma, first initial, period. Again, the year, because the year is very important in the APA citation style because current works tend to take priority over older works because research is constantly changing and growing and based on prior research. So more recent research tends to be more relevant in many cases. We've got our title, we've got our publication, The Current Opinion in Psychology, and we've got a volume and a page range. Notice here that there is no issue because this is a publication that only does a volume, not an individual issue. We've got our DOI number at the end. We can have many more than just one or two authors, and you can see an example of that above. It is not unusual in the social sciences to have numerous authors, although once the number gets to a certain point, you stop listing authors individually. But in APA, it takes a large number of authors for that to happen. Often in the social sciences, you have lots of authors because there's lots of work to be done around large experiments, so you'll have a paper that's written by many authors to provide all of that labor that's required. So what is that DOI that's at the end of our citations, our references that we just looked at? That stands for Digital Object Identifier. It's a unique number assigned to an article. Think of it as like a social security number for a journal article so that you can distinguish it from other articles. It also helps us generate a stable URL that gets back to that article's homepage, regardless of what database or platform has access to it. So that can be a really useful tool that it gives us a stable URL. Often if you find a URL that is like 2 or 3 lines long, that is not a stable URL. That is a database-driven URL, and it often doesn't work after a few hours. So these stable URLs are very important. APA requires you to include an article's DOI number if it's available. Remember, older articles may not have a DOI number, but most recent articles in the social sciences and STEM will have a DOI number. So let's talk a little bit about citing gray literature. So gray literature still follows the who, when, what, where, but the where is a little different this time. So who is the author, when is the year, what is the document title, and where is a URL. This is because gray literature is a term used to refer to things like government reports or NGO data or IGO data or information from a think tank. So it may not have a volume issue in that structure that we're used to in peer-reviewed scholarly journal articles, but it may be extremely reputable and valuable in our research, and so we need to cite it. So here's an example of something from the National Health Statistics Reports, a government document. You can see we've got our authors, we've got our title of the report, and then we've got our URL. So let's talk a little bit about an APA reference list. This is required if you use any sources other than your own knowledge. So in addition to the parenthetical citation, you need a reference list at the end of your paper. Each source cited in your paper should have a corresponding entry in the reference list, and of course vice versa. You shouldn't have more sources than you actually consulted. Sources should be alphabetical by author's last name. Multiple works by the same author are listed chronologically. So here's an example. You can see we started with the author that has a B in their last name, then a G, then an M, then a W. And you can see we have a DOI number, and then this is a book. It does not have a DOI number. This is also. So books do not have DOI numbers. So this is a sample student references page. Lastly, I want to talk for just a minute about using Zbib to create a bibliography. ZoteroBib, or Zbib as it's known for short, is an online tool that helps you create bibliographies quickly right from a web browser. You don't have to have an account, you don't have to do any kind of installation, and it's available at the website zbib.org. You can see the ZSR Library's YouTube channel or the links in the description for this video to get to video instructions for exporting bibliographies in the APA citation style using Zbib. Zbib is also so easy that you can very readily teach yourself. Please note that Zbib is not perfect. None of the citation tools are perfect. Citation Machine, EasyBib, Moodle tools all require you to review and correct any errors in the citation, and it is your responsibility to do that before turning in your final paper, project, whatever you're working on. Lastly, just a quick note, if you clear your web browser's cache, you will delete sources from Zbib. You will delete sources from Zbib if you clear that browser cache. Finally, if you have any questions, you can email askzsr@wfu.edu, and they will go into our triage system and be sent to the appropriate librarian to respond to your question. Thanks for your attention.